This eerie story is set in the bustling streets of Lagos, Nigeria, weaving through its vibrant nightlife and the culture of hard-working taxi drivers. It follows Chijioke, a dedicated cab driver, who one night unknowingly picks up a ghostly passenger. The seemingly ordinary ride spirals into a chilling confrontation between the living and the dead. This tale of mystery and the supernatural will keep audiences on the edge of their seats. The streets of Lagos never sleep. By day, the roads are packed with honking cars, traders shouting their wares, and pedestrians weaving through the chaos. By night, the city transforms into a different kind of frenzy, glittering lights, music blaring from clubs, and cabs shuttling late-night revelers. Chijioke, a seasoned cab driver, had been driving through the night, hoping to make extra cash. His radio crackled with calls from dispatch, but it was a direct order through a ride-hailing app that caught his attention. It was a pickup from the outskirts of Victoria Island to a secluded neighborhood. The fare was generous. Chijioke, tired but eager to end his night on a high note, accepted the ride. He checked his rearview mirror and adjusted his seat as he drove toward the pickup point. Chijioke arrived at a dimly lit street, the GPS indicating he had reached the location. A woman in a flowing white gown stood by the roadside, her long hair glistening in the faint moonlight. She looked out of place, serene and still amidst the chaos of Lagos. He rolled down the window. "Good evening, Ma. Are you the one who ordered the cab?" She nodded, her voice soft yet commanding. "Yes, please take me home." She climbed into the back seat. Chijioke noticed she didn't smell like sweat or perfume, as most passengers did. Instead, there was a faint floral scent, almost otherworldly. He shrugged it off and began driving. As they drove, the woman gave directions to her destination, a remote neighborhood on the outskirts of town. The streets became quieter, and the once familiar hum of Lagos nightlife faded into eerie silence. "Do you live alone, Ma?" Chijioke asked, trying to break the silence. "Yes," she replied, her tone cold. The journey continued, but the GPS signal became erratic, and Chijioke realized they were heading deeper into an area he didn't recognize. "Are you sure this is the right way?" he asked nervously. The woman didn't reply. Instead, she stared out the window, her face emotionless. A chill ran down Chijioke's spine. When they arrived at the destination, Chijioke saw a dilapidated house with shattered windows and overgrown weeds. It looked abandoned. "Are you sure this is your house?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Yes," she said, stepping out of the car. She turned to face him and smiled, a smile that was both sad and haunting. "Thank you for the ride." Before Chijioke could respond, she vanished into thin air. His heart pounded as he stared at the empty spot where she had stood. Terrified, Chijioke sped off into the night, not daring to look back. The next day, Chijioke couldn't shake the feeling of dread. He told his friends and fellow drivers about his experience. One of them listened intently and said, "That house. It's been abandoned for years. People say a woman died there in a robbery gone wrong." Chijioke's blood ran cold. He realized he had driven a ghost to her final resting place. From that day on, Chijioke avoided late-night rides and stayed away from remote areas. But the memory of the phantom passenger haunted him, a chilling reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead. Weeks passed, but Chijioke couldn't forget the ghostly passenger. He avoided late-night shifts and remote locations, yet the memory lingered, gnawing at him. His friends' warnings about the abandoned house only added to his unease. One evening, against his better judgment, Chijioke found himself driving late again. Bills needed paying, and the lure of good fares outweighed his fear. The city buzzed as usual, and he told himself that everything would be fine. Around midnight, he received a request. The pickup location made his heart sink. It was the same remote street where he had picked up the mysterious woman. He stared at his phone, his hands trembling. But his desperation for money got the better of him, and he accepted the ride. As he approached the street, dread consumed him. He prayed silently, gripping the steering wheel tightly. When he arrived, he saw no one. Breathing a sigh of relief, he decided to cancel the ride and leave. But just as he reached for his phone, there was a knock on his window. He turned and froze. It was her, the same woman in the white gown, her face pale and emotionless. "Please take me home," she said, her voice as haunting as before. Chijioke didn't know what possessed him to unlock the doors, but he did. She entered the car silently and gave him the same directions to the abandoned house. "Who are you?" he finally managed to ask, his voice shaking. "I need to go home," she replied, her gaze fixed ahead. He swallowed hard but said nothing. As they neared the house, she whispered, "They took everything from me, my life, my peace." Chijioke felt a chill run down his spine. "Who?" "The men who robbed me," she said. Her voice was filled with sorrow but carried an edge of anger. "They killed me for a few naira. They think they've escaped justice, but they haven't." Chijioke's fear gave way to a strange sense of pity. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "Help me find them," she said, her gaze meeting his in the rearview mirror. Her eyes glowed faintly, like embers in the dark. Over the following days, Chijioke found himself drawn into the mystery of her death. The woman, who revealed her name was Adiz, began appearing in his dreams, guiding him to places and people connected to her murder. With Adiz's help, he pieced together the events of that fateful night. She had been a young teacher returning home with her salary when she was attacked by 3 men. They had fled Lagos after her death, leaving her so tied to the place where she had perished. Chijioke sought out one of Adiz's former neighbors, an elderly woman who confirmed the story. "That poor girl," the woman said, shaking her head. "No one ever found those men." Guided by visions Adiz showed him in his dreams, Chijioke tracked down the men in a small town far from Lagos. They were living quietly, their crime long forgotten by the world. Chijioke confronted them in a public place, a crowded market. At first, they laughed off his accusations, calling him mad. But as he described details only Adiz could know, their faces turned pale. "She's here," Chijioke said, his voice steady. "She hasn't forgotten." The air grew heavy, and a sudden chill swept through the market. People gasped as Adiz's ghostly figure appeared, her expression fierce and unrelenting. "You thought you could escape," she said, her voice echoing unnaturally. "But justice always finds its way." The men fell to their knees, begging for forgiveness, but Adiz simply vanished, leaving them to face their own guilt and the wrath of the law. With the men apprehended, Chijioke returned to the abandoned house one last time. Adiz appeared, her form less ghostly and more serene. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I can rest now." As she faded into the night, Chijioke felt a weight lift from his chest. He had helped a restless soul find peace, but the experience left him changed forever. From that day on, Chijioke continued his work as a cab driver, but he became known as a man who carried stories as heavy as the city itself. This story explores themes of justice, redemption, and the enduring ties between the living and the dead. The central conflict lies in Chijioke's struggle to confront his fears and uncover the truth behind Adiz's tragic death. If you love this story, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more captivating tales like this one.